Hello YouTube, it's Ryan here with Hobbies of Man once again, and today we're going to be doing our monthly check-in for the month of December. And actually this is more like the wrap-up video for the month because I do have a few reviews left. Mostly what's going to be going on next week is going to be mostly end of the year wrap-up type videos. So we'll see how that goes. I think the only thing I'm missing is a year-end review video to record. That's the last thing I need to record, but everything else is recorded, it's set up. I just need to edit it, and that's what I'm going to be doing for the next few days after I finish my exam. But yeah, so the last day that I'm going to have a video up is the 23rd, which is Friday. Then I'm going to take a few weeks off, and I think the first video of the year is going to be sometime in January 5th, or around those days. I haven't really decided what day yet, but I do think I'm going to come back around the 5th of January. And it'll be a TBR video, then a post-holiday check-in / haul video, and we'll see, where it goes from there. And we'll go back to normal kind of stuff that we do. So, yeah, I don't know what else there is to really do or say, so let's get into it. I can't remember anything else that I needed to mention, so it is what it is. I'll mention it some other time if I need to. So let's get started with what I've been watching. It really hasn't been much. I've been pretty busy studying. It's the last week of school this week, and later today I have my last exam for the month, for the semester. And tomorrow I head back home. So I have, I've had a lot of stuff to do. So I haven't really had much time to do, anything. And that's definitely reflected in my to watch list. And yeah, so I watched 4 episodes of Lycoris Recoil. Finished that series, did a review for it. I really enjoyed it, actually. I initially thought it was going to be a girls versus kaijus kind of thing. That's pretty common as a manga thing. And it turned out that it wasn't that case. It was actually a more of a John Wick, Jason Bourne type kind of situation with high school teenagers, mostly only girls. And it was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. It ended, and I think it doesn't have to go another season. I think it's done, and that's that. Although it did end in that classic James Bond style, where he just ends up in a in a beach and he's having fun with a girl. So entirely possible that the next season starts by having someone go recruit them from that island, if they ever wanted to do that, and turn it into like a teenage into adulthood kind of like secret like service type thing, which I think would be pretty cool. I don't know if Japan really is that into that type of stuff. I don't know if it would work for them that much, but it could. I mean, it would be an interesting kind of thing to do. But overall, I like the series, and I'm happy that I watched it. So yeah, then the other series I finished watching was Ranking of Kings. I watched 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So 6 episodes. I finished the series. I love it. I thought it only covered about 3 volumes worth of content, but apparently it covers the whole first part of the series, which is 12 volumes. Now, that's pretty awesome. I like it a lot. It kind of makes sense. However, I do think the last episode or 2 were a tiny bit more rushed than they should have been. The resolution of everything happened a little too quickly, in my opinion, but given that it's not really the end of the story, I think it's fine. But it's kind of odd that it did end that quickly, but also I think it was really satisfying to watch. I really enjoyed it. I really wish we had the series in English in print. Technically speaking, I think it's available in English somewhere. I actually checked the Wikipedia page. It says it's through Bookwalker by a company called Book Live, but then if you go to Bookwalker and look up Ranking of Kings, nothing shows up. So I think there was some issues where they copied fan translations, although I'm not sure that's true. But I feel like I remember that being a controversy a while back, and I just never paid attention to it because I wasn't a fan of the series at that point. I have a French edition of the first volume. I will probably buy the Spanish from Spain edition at some point. But I would really love to have it in English. I think it'd be much easier to get. It would cost about the same as the Spanish edition, but I would really like it to be a lot more accessible through having it physically in print in English. However, I do think there might be some issues with that because the art style of the anime is beautiful. The art style of the manga is in the same vein, but it's pretty ugly in comparison. So it might be just one of those things where let's just keep it anime only, and this will avoid people not buying the series because they realize it looks kind of ugly, right? So it might make sense if that's the case, but I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just kind of speculating here. But it is what it is. Ranking of Kings and Lycoris Recoil were great. I watched them at the end of the beginning. I watched the end of them at the beginning of the month, and then I moved on to comic books and manga, and I have not actually finished any novels, so there won't be a novel section today. But moving on to the comic books, I don't really have too many of them. I mostly didn't really read that many of them because there wasn't really too much going on in terms of stuff that was releasing. So I have 4 that were released at the end of last month that I didn't get to mention last time, and 4 that I picked up just yesterday. So started with Vanish number 3. Pretty cool. I'm still not sure about the series. It has a lot of cool action, but I'm not really sure what it's about yet. But generally speaking, it's this it's basically if the Chosen One became, some sort of PTSD-filled, soldier with issues, and then he finds out that the people that he thought he had killed and had become a hero for are suddenly back, and he has to finish his job basically, but he doesn't really have the ability to do so anymore because of all of his problems. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of working for me, but I'm still not really sure exactly how I feel about it. Then we have Rogue Sun number 8. This one gets back on track. This one is kind of like not a reset, but it kind of it's like those episodes or the ending of the episode of Power Rangers where okay, they went through the whole adventure and now it's going back to class so they can reset for the next kind of situation. It's kind of what's happening here. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it, and I'm definitely excited to read more of it. So yeah, the Supermassive or Massive Verse is really working for me. Then we have Dead Lucky number 4. She's finally figuring out her powers, but there's still a lot of growing pains to do, and I'm pretty excited about it. So yeah, there really isn't too much else to say about this one because it's one of those weird points where a lot of stuff is happening, but not enough stuff is happening because it's mostly emotional inner turmoil type stuff. Then we have Unbreakable Red Sonja number 2. Pretty good. Red Sonja meets Red Sonja, and they kind of go together in a classic Red Sonja takes care of the kid kind of vibe. If you read the previous Red Sonja run with Mirka and Dolfo, you kind of get a feel for what's happening here. So yeah. Then we have Lord of the Jungle number 2. This one continues to go off the rails from the original novel. It kind of goes in a different way in order to kind of set up this new conflict. And basically, instead of Tarzan's mother being killed by a tribe of cannibal Africans, she's killed by some European hunters. And it seems like these hunters managed to escape Tarzan's wrath. And, as an old man, he has, this feeling that he has to come back and finish his job. And so he's back around to try to do that. But, he's being told, hey, man, this is probably not a good thing to do. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how that goes and, what happens there. But I would have really liked it if it was a little bit more connected to original stuff. I mean, they could have easily made it happen if they took characters from the second book, which I think are supposed to eventually die later on in the series. And maybe it could have been one of them actually didn't die. It was all a scam, and he's back for vengeance, and so Tarzan has to go back to the jungle to face him off. And that would have worked a little bit better. It wouldn't have to retcon the classic novels. But also, at the same time, those novels are pretty old. They're over 110 years old. Maybe it is time to abridge them or try to make them a little bit more modern and kind of get rid of that initial kind of very racist kind of vibe that the first Tarzan novel kind of might have had, depending on your outlook, right? So it makes sense, but I would have liked it if they didn't meddle with the original source material and they kind of just went a little bit more, what's the word? They found better ways to connect it, right, to things. So, you know, it is what it is. Then we have Least We Can Do number 4. Pretty good stuff. I think there's a romance set up at the end of this. And I also want to mention that this one was pretty badly printed, and the pages were cut incorrectly. And there was a lot of issues with this one while I was trying to read it. Not because the story was bad, the story was pretty good. But because all of the stuff around the story was pretty badly handled. Like, there was printing issues. There was things that were being repeated that didn't have to be repeated and stuff like that. And I'm pretty unhappy with it. Also, this cover has nothing to do with what happens in the volume. So I don't know what the hell the point of it was. But, you know, it is what it is. It's not that big a deal. And then we have Dawn Attack. This is another Frank Frazetta work. I was going to do a initial review video for this, but there really isn't too much going on here yet for me to form an opinion on. So I'm going to not do that. I'm going to wait until we get a full story arc, and then I'll review it, like I did for what's the other one called? Death Dealer. However, I did like the art style. Diego Yapor does a good job with it. And I also like the character designs. You know, I think her name is Dawn, and she attacks, and that's why it's called Dawn Attack. But I like her character design. It does have that kind of Princess Leia vibe to it that I really like. So, yeah, then we have Batman and Spawn, which is pretty good. Apparently, this is kind of continuing off an old series. I'm not necessarily sure that's true, because this felt like an initial first volume to a series. It has the Court of Owls, it has Batman, it has Spawn, and they're all fighting against each other because that's just what happens when there's crossovers like this. And it was pretty good. It was mostly just action. It was $7, and it is a big book, but it's supposed to be number 1, but I don't know when number 2 is going to come out. And I honestly don't think I would pick it up because I didn't really end up caring all that much. But it is a cool little collector piece if you're a fan of Batman and if you're a fan of Spawn, which I am. So there we go. That's Batman and Spawn. Now let's move on to the manga, the good part of the video, the part that most people watch, I think. And well, there's quite a bit of stuff actually, because basically everything that I bought this month, I also ended up reading. So if you check my haul video, I will probably be pretty mum about how I describe things in that video, mostly so that I can describe them in this video, which is something I try to do but I never succeed at, so hopefully I did better this time. But let's start off with Kamen Rider Kuga, number 1. Good story. Starts out with a bunch of people that are in some sort of mountain cave in Japan, but it looks Mesoamerican. It has a Mesoamerican vibe. And then there's this giant coffin, and you know, the stupid scientists open it, and they're like, "Oh, there's a dude in here." And it's kind of this, it kind of feels like JoJo's Part 2, where they unearth the Pillar Man. It kind of has that same vibe, or kind of like the Mummy, I guess, when they, you know, get the guy from the Mummy out, and they unleash a thing, and everyone dies. Now, I do think that the guy they unleash in this cave is actually the Kamen Rider, but I'm not sure that that's the case. But by the end of the story, after we get to the end of the volume, a new Kamen Rider appears, and it's a character that we meet throughout the volume, of course, and it's pretty cool and very awesome, and I really like the art style. Looks really, really cool. We're introduced to 5 different villains. The first one is this like praying mantis guy that you guys can see right there. Then we have 4 other ones. 2 of them are women, 2 of them are guys, I think. There's one that has like this rose symbol. One of them has like some sort of mantis. The other one has some sort of fly. And the other one has some sort of wolf characteristic to it. Or a bear maybe. But it's really cool. I really like the characters. We follow a detective who is initially told, "Hey, can you be the Kamen Rider?" And he doesn't answer the call. So the spirit of the Kamen Rider moves somewhere else to try to find someone that's more worthy than this guy. And then we meet some other characters. There's this guy called Yusuke who has this kind of very naive outlook on life. But he's very cool. I quite like him. So Kamen Rider Kuga, very good first volume. I do have some small issues with it. First of all, If this is one of your launch titles, you should not have any issues with it. And there is a pretty big issue here where the spine isn't aligned correctly. As you guys can see right there, there's this bit of color here that should not be there. And maybe it's not noticeable on video, but in person, it's a huge chunk of the spine, and it really bothers me. It really annoys me that there's no quality control for these types of things, especially because, you know, it's a new publisher. They're trying to debut their titles. This is their second debut title, and they didn't bother to make sure that everything was printed correctly. It's kind of annoying. The other thing is that this series is one that I think definitely needs color pages, and this company, or these two companies, decided to not have any of them in this book. I don't know if that's because Japan didn't let them have it, or because they chose not to, but it is a pretty big disservice to the artwork here, because there's a lot of these pages that are super saturated with ink because they're supposed to be in color, and they just got grayscaled, and they look pretty fucking horrible in black and white. And I think they would have been better if they had been in color, because there's a lot of them, and it kind of affected my reading experience. I was really enjoying the very crisp and clean artwork that the volume has, and then I got hit with a bunch of these cool pages that were supposed to be very awesome action pages in color, and they're all in black and white, and you can barely see what the hell's happening because there's such massive amounts of black and gray all over the place. And here's what they're supposed to look like in color, because you know, they added those images there, but this makes the situation worse because now I know what they look like in color, and I'm very upset that they're not. And it would have been fine if it was just like 1 or 2 pages in the whole volume, but there's like 12 or like 15 pages in this volume that are all like this, and it kind of sucks because they're like the big impactful moments, but then those impactful moments are kind of ruined because you can barely tell what the hell's going on in the story, right? But you know, when it's not in color or when it's not in grayscale, it looks really good. Like, the art style is really clean and very, you know, attractive looking, so I quite like that. Then moving on to Eden 019. Last time I mentioned that there was this death scene that was not well set up and that didn't really work. That's because apparently it was just a fake out death in order to set up the real death that happened in this volume. I guess that works. It worked much better. It was definitely an emotional kind of situation, but because I already knew, because of spoilers, it didn't really work for me anyways. It didn't really hit me as hard as it did. And normally I wouldn't really care. It's like, oh, okay, whatever, it's fine. But the thing is that with One Piece, there was a huge character death, and I knew about it forever, and it still hurt when that character died. Not the same happening here. Of course, there's a difference. First of all, I think that in this case, the character that dies is one that's important to us directly, whereas in One Piece, it's actually one that's indirectly important to us. And that was also after 60 volumes of setup, where this one is only 19. So there is a bit of a difference there. But Mashima always manages to, you know, pull at my heartstrings, and the fact that he didn't manage today kind of sucks. But, you know, it is what it is. Then we have Shy, a new volume. This is a superhero manga. This is by Yen Press, and it's pretty good. It does kind of give me that same vibe that the first couple chapters of My Hero did. That kind of moment where there's this shy kid. They want to be a hero with all their heart, but they're having trouble with the reality of their situation. And eventually they do have a moment where someone reaffirms their desire, their dream. And then they go all in on their dream, on their desire. And then they get set up with like, hey, the world's going to end. Here's what you need to do. So it has the same kind of general setup, because I think most superhero things have that same general setup. But I think it works really well. I like the character Teru, or Shy, whatever you want to call her. However, I don't like that she's 14, because it kind of, I don't know, it doesn't really work for the story setup in this situation. It's not like there's hundreds of heroes everywhere. There's one hero per country, and Japan, in their, you know, stupidness, I guess, decided to pick a 14-year-old girl as their hero. A 14-year-old girl that has a shyness problem. So, I don't know. That's the one complaint I have about this, but everything else, aside from that single complaint, works really well. The whole story is really, really good. I'm definitely excited to read the next volume. I'm also excited to meet all of these other characters in the back here. The other thing, complaint here, there's no color pages. Annoys me because this costs the same amount of money, the same dollars as Chain Soldier. Chain Soldier has three color pages per volume, and this one has none. It really bothers me, and I think I've been harping on this lately a lot, but it's because it's really annoying. It's like everything costs so much, and we're not getting any of the things that are clearly supposed to be in this volume, right? Like color pages. There's like 3 color pages in this book. I doubt that costs more than 20 cents a page. It might cost a little bit more, but like if you're already charging me $13, just charge me $14 and give me those color pages, or charge accurately for everything across the board. Everything should cost the same if it's gonna have the same things, right? Like, why is it that 2 different series in the same price range and the same size and the same kind of vibe don't have the same bells and whistles? It like really bothers me that there's inconsistencies across this price range. If it was like the $10 things don't have any color pages, then the $13 pages do, then the $14 or $15 ones have a larger trim size, like that would make sense as long as everything was consistent. But the fact that it's not really annoys me. Now I understand that's because, you know, certain things in Japan work certain different ways, and you know, sometimes certain licenses cost more money than others, but it's like, bro, make it, if you're already paying that much, just make it so that we, the customer, the people that make your company work, get all of the good things that come with that volume and not just the bare minimum. It just really annoys me, and it's been annoying me a lot more recently than it usually does. So you know, it is what it is. But there you go. That's my rant about color pages and shit over because I realize that that's not what you guys are here for. So yeah, moving on, we have Sunken Rock volumes 3, 4, and 5, and I really enjoyed it actually. This is actually volumes 5 and 6, 7 and 8, and 9 and 10. So we're halfway through the series at this point. There's 12 volumes, and so we're almost to the halfway point. I need one more to be halfway, and it's really good stuff actually. It's really enjoyable. It's kind of ridiculous because it's all over the place. Like at the core, it is still a like shonen protagonist in an adult manga, where the theme of the manga, or the main kind of massive plot point, is that there's a mafia family that's developing in the middle of Korea, and in this volume we mostly deal with, you know, stuff like that. They battle against another group of people for a casino, which is really good stuff. In this one, we actually move on to something a little bit different. We go to Italy to deal with some mafia men and to kind of move on from the situation that happened at the casino. And then they also end up having just kind of slice of life moments with each other. And then in this one, Ken decides to become a agent for idols, still within the context of the fact that he's a mafia boss, but it's pretty ridiculous and it's pretty funny. But I think that it's interesting that Boichi just like explores all of these other possible manga like options through this one major manga that he's creating. So it's pretty fun. It definitely has that vibe of like magnum opus for this writer. It's also kind of interesting that, yeah, you know, these are really horny, and there's almost like actual porn scenes in there. But apparently Boichi's editor is his wife. At least that's what it says at the end of volume 4. So that's gonna be a pretty interesting kind of situation to have in, to be in. But I think it's pretty common actually. So you know, it is what it is. But it's pretty funny just to think about. Like Boichi draws these crazy things, and his wife is like, "Bruh, really?" Like, I don't know. I just think that's kind of funny. But it is what it is. Really good stuff. If you guys are interested, definitely pick up the Spanish editions of Sunken Rock. I think you can read it on Crunchyroll or Manga Planet in English, but you have to have a subscription. So, you know, feel free to do that. But I don't really recommend it, actually. The English translation is like machine made, and it makes very little sense. Like, it needs to be edited, but no one ever did it. At least from the first couple of chapters I read when I was looking into the series. So I definitely recommend you guys read it elsewhere, and definitely buy the physical edition so that you're supporting Boichi for sure. So yeah, moving on here to a manhwa. This is Tomb Raider King, which is actually pretty good. I really enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. It's the same basic setup as every other OP isekai style manga or manhwa. Technically, it's not an isekai. This is a game-led story. It's a reincarnation story in a vague sense, but it is not an isekai. It is not into another world. But if you like solo leveling, you'll like this one because it's basically the same setup, but the flavor of it is different because the world building is slightly different, but it ends up being the same thing. It's one guy that has a special skill that happens to give him video game abilities, and he's using it to rise up in the ranks and also to basically enact revenge on someone who wronged him and or save someone. In this case, it's himself, but it's solo level against his mom. So really good stuff. I really enjoyed it. It's much better than The World After the Fall. Honestly, out of the three, like, samey kind of manhwa, The World After the Fall is the worst one of the three. But Soul Leveling is number 1, Tomb Raider King is number 2, and then The World After the Fall is like number 20. I don't like it at all. Honestly, I was going to wait and try to get another volume before I decided, but the more I think about it, the more I don't want to read the next volume. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so in this one, what happens is that there's these things called relics, and one day they appear, and certain people, specifically rich people, manage to get their hands on them and then use them to become even more rich. However, our main character, let me see what his name is, Johei Su, or Yuhyun, Yuhyun, I guess, works for one of these people as a tomb raider, or a relic finder, basically. Except one day he gets betrayed by his boss, and he activates a relic by accident that allows him to go back in time, use a video game skill, and change his life. And so what he does now is he's chasing down all of the relics that he knew rich people in the past got in order to not let them have any, so that he can control all of them, so that he can become rich and powerful, so that he can change his life. And along the way, well, he's killing people left and right. So yeah, pretty fun, actually. It's really enjoyable. It's definitely one of these unnecessarily ridiculous power fantasies, but it's fun. So yeah, moving on to Beauty and the Beast. Very cute, very wonderful. I love this series so much. This one gets a little bit more serious about the love dynamic between the two characters. There's a few different misunderstandings here, and generally speaking, it's pretty fun. I really liked it. We get to meet an older sister of the girl that's always into Yamato, but she's like weird, so Yamato doesn't pay attention to her. I can't remember her name. Yamato and Shuko end up having fun with some sparklers. They also go to an adult pool like that is open at night, and they accidentally end up, in situations that are kind of naughty, I guess. And we also deal with the fact that Yamato lost the game to get into or to fight against Koshien, which is the top school in their district or something, and they really wanted to beat the school so that they could go to Koshien, and they lost, so they weren't able to go. But it is what it is. And he moved on from that. He decided to train more, and along the way, he started to kind of fall in love with Shuko. So it is what it is. But yeah, really good stuff. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for the next volume. We have Drifting Dragons, number 11, which is pretty wonderful. I really like it. Basically, we follow Vanabelle. If you guys have read up to volume 10, you realize that Vanabelle is actually some sort of princess, and she accidentally ends up back in her home country, and they recognize her, so they're like, hey, can you help us finish this war? And then her Draker friends show up, and then they're brought into a different group, and then they help them get rid of these dragons that are assaulting the city. And then there's this big fight, and basically there's like a tiny mini war, and then eventually everything is settled. We learn a lot about Vanabelle, and the story ends with a very big cliffhanger. Like, you know, is Vanabelle going to keep going with the Drakers, or is she going to stay in her kingdom? You know, what's going to happen? And then there's a bonus chapter that completely threw me for a loop because it goes back in time and has them having fun, but I didn't realize that at the time of reading it. So I thought there was a cliffhanger and then a giant time skip, and we just didn't ever get to see, you know, the resolution of that tension. So it was kind of pretty pissed for a little bit, and then I realized it was a bonus chapter, and then I got over it. But it was kind of interesting, but really good stuff. I really enjoyed it. There's a huge section of flashbacks and interesting stuff here with Vanabelle's kingdom, which is really, really cool. So yeah, really good stuff. I definitely recommend you guys check out Drifting Dragons if you have not yet. Then we have Witch Hand Atelier number 8. Really good stuff here. I really enjoy the evil character that shows up at the end of the story, or I guess they're not evil, but they're like bad guys. And I also was really interested in the, what's it called? The moral questions that are asked here. Like, you know, is it really okay for witches to not help people to their fullest extent just because they have to follow their stupid rules? Or is it wrong? Or, you know, all of these types of things. Really good stuff. Really interested to see what the answer is eventually. And overall, very fun stuff. And of course, this one is one of the volumes that has a lot of deep, dark things happening in the background, which is really exciting because technically all of them do, but there's certain volumes that have a lot more going on in them, and this one is definitely one of them. If there's really any complaint here, is that these volumes get skinnier and skinnier every time I buy one. And it's not because there are less pages, it's because the paper is different from before. So this one has, let's see, this one has 153 pages, and the earlier ones have like 200, but this feels like significantly thinner than them, even though the page difference is that. However, it's probably because these are being printed in Mexico, and so their paper quality is different, or well, the paper quality is the same, but the thinness of the paper is a lot more is a lot more noticeable. So it's kind of making the later volumes look really, really skinny compared to the original ones, although the heft and stuff is more or less the same. So it's kind of interesting. It's not really happening in any other series. I think it's just these ones because it's being reprinted with this Eisner winner logo thing on it. So that might be it. I haven't really seen anyone complain about it, so it's probably that no one has noticed. But I did, and I found it interesting. It's the same thing as was happening with My Hero Academia Italy prints, but I don't really care. It's not that big a deal. It's just kind of annoying to buy like a $13 book and have it be like really skinny, even though, you know, it has the same amount of pages as the other ones. Yeah, then we have Yakuza Fiance. I liked it, but I also didn't really love it. I don't like any of the characters yet, but I'm very intrigued by the premise. It's pretty odd, actually. There's this girl called Yoshino, and there's this guy called Kirishima. They're both the grandchildren of Yakuza bosses. And Kirishima is from Tokyo, I guess, and Yoshino is from Osaka. And so Yoshino is sent to Tokyo to go meet Kirishima so that they can potentially get married and develop a truce between their families. However, Kirishima is actually kind of a masochist, and so he wants a sadist relationship, like some sort of SM relationship. And well, Yoshino's not really into that, but through a weird kind of convoluted process, she eventually shows that she has kind of what it takes for what Kirishima wants. And so he actually ends up pining after her, after he initially told her he didn't need her anymore and that she should leave. And it's kind of really odd. But at the end of it, I'm pretty excited about what's going to happen next. And I'm pretty excited to check it out. But honestly, I think my expectations were really high about this because a lot of people were mentioning that it was really, really good. And it was, but not as good as I thought it was going to be, which kind of sucks. But, you know, it is what it is. I'll definitely keep reading it for another 2 volumes or so, and then I'll decide if I really want to continue collecting it or not. But either way, I managed to get the Kinokuniya Shigishi boards, so if I resell them, it'll definitely help me out and help me, get back a little bit more money than I would have otherwise. So that's pretty good. And we have Dress Up Darling number 5 and number 6. Really good stuff here. I really like this one. This one specifically ends up finally addressing the fact that, you know, hey, these guys look like they should be in a relationship, Marin and Wakana, and well, they finally address it, and I'm very excited for Volume 7 to see how it kind of gets definitely you know, talked about, how Wakana and Marin decide to figure out their situation, because I think they would. It makes sense for them to finally develop their relationship after 6 volumes, and you know, it's kind of interesting how he adamantly refuses, but it's not because he doesn't like her. It's actually probably because he does like her, and he still has that kind of complex about the fact that, you know, he likes doing something that's kind of weird, and so he wants to kind of protect her from being associated with his weirdness. So I think it's really cute, but it also kind of it needs to evolve a little bit. So yeah, there you go. That's My Dress Up Darling number 5 and number 6. And then 2 more volumes here. Actually, one more, because the other one I'm mentioning here because I'm going to read it tonight, but I haven't actually finished reading it. So first we have Cheese Sweet Home number 1. Really good stuff. I really enjoyed it. If you have kids, you'll probably like this one. It's pretty easy to read. I think children might like this one, actually, because it's about a cute little kitty that gets in a lot of little adventures, and it's really fun. The one thing is that it's really hefty, so it might not be easy for kids to read, but if you have kids and you hold the book for them, it might be an enjoyable time and a way to spend your evenings with your kids, right? I don't have children. I feel like I'm still a child, but I really enjoyed this, so I thought it was fun. I definitely recommend it, and I'm very happy I bought all 4 of them basically in one go, because if I had not, I don't think I would have continued reading this. Which brings me to Cheese Sweet Home number 2, which I haven't read yet, but I'm going to be reading it tonight, so I'm going to mention it in this check-in because, well, if I don't, I'm never going to mention it in any other video. So, yeah, there really isn't too much to say there because I haven't read it, but Cheese Sweet Home is really, really good. It's about this little kitty who gets lost. She gets separated from her mom, and eventually she ends up in a park. This park also happens to be the park where the Yamada family is, and Yohei Yamada, the little boy, sees the little kitty. He becomes friends with her, and they take her home. And initially, she wants to leave and go find her mom, but then she kind of forgets, and she becomes a part of the Yamada family. Then hijinks ensue because the Yamadas live in a place where they're not supposed to have pets, and so there's this big, ridiculous, like Looney Tunes-esque kind of vibe where they're just trying to avoid their superintendent or the person that owns the land that they're in, the apartment complex that they're in, so that she doesn't ever have to figure out that they have a cat. However, eventually stuff happens and another cat shows up, and it leads to them finding a new place where they might be able to stay. So I think Volume 2 deals with them moving houses, and then developing a new situation in this new place where they live. So yeah, really good stuff. She's a really cute little cat, and it's very, very adorable. So yeah, that's really all there is to say. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. I feel like I'm kind of all over the place today. I wasn't really the best at talking about the books, but hopefully it was still a kind of enjoyable video there. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching, and see you guys later.